you found a picture that you want to do and it's rather basic, and you've saved it in the picture file. So now you're actually ready to try to put it on a part. So we're going to do, to start a new part, we're going to start a 2D sketch. And you can do the XY plane or you can do the XZ plane. And since I'm going to be doing a basketball, it makes sense for me to do a circle. You can start out with a square palette, you can start out with a circle palette, but I don't want you to make anything more than 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. So that's what we're going to kind of max stuff out as. Nothing can be bigger than that. So I'm going to start with a circle, and we're going to make it 2.5 inches. And I'm going to hit escape, and I'm going to home it. And now that I actually have a 2.5 inch circle, I'm going to hit finish sketch. I am going to be extruding this. Definitely not an inch. I think the max that we want to extrude some things are probably a grand total of about 0.25 of an inch. That's the total of everything is a 0.25 of an inch. And since I'm going to be cutting in and building up, I'm going to kind of pick something in the middle. So I'm going to start out with about 0.1 of an inch. So I have a nice little palette to work on. I can always go back and fix that extrusion. And now on top of my palette, I'm actually going to start a 2D sketch on top of my palette, and I am going to come over here and import the image of the basketball that I saved. So I'm going to go to image, I'm going to do the drop down arrow, and I'm going to look under this PC until I find the pictures file, and in the pictures file I have a ton of pictures, but I'm specifically looking for the basketball one that I want to do. I'm going to click open. And I'm going to just click once and hit escape because this picture is going to be kind of giant when you start. So you have to resize it. So you want to take some time right now to kind of resize it. It's going to be tricky. I've kind of learned to play with it. Sometimes it can be a little frustrating, but you might want to play around to resize it to where you want. It's definitely not going to be perfect. Some people choose to have it go around the outside of this. I'm going to kind of leave myself a little bit of kind of a border on it because I like it that way. So now that I have the picture is going to be my guide. The picture is not, I cannot do this exact. It's going to be way too intense to try to do exact. So this is what I'm going to do with it. The nice part about doing 3D printing is you can decide what's going to go inward, which means what's going to actually go into this palette and dig in, and what's going to come up above the actual extruded palette. So for example, what I'm going to choose is the stuff that's orange, I want to go upwards. The stuff that's black, I'm going to choose to go inwards into the palette. So that's what I'm kind of decide. You can do a mixture of both. I also am going to put some wording on this that I'm going to have go upward also. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take between circles and splines, and possibly arcs, I'm going to go ahead and trace all of these black lines as best as I can. And I have to make sure that I close these black lines. So I'm going to take some time to do that. Okay, so it took me a little bit of time, but if you noticed, I used the circle tool, and I took the circle tool and I made this outer circle, and it's not exact, I just kind of made it as a rough around the edges where the basketball is, and then I used the circle tool to then get this inner circle. And then once I had that, I kind of used this black line. It's, again, not perfect. I just kind of used it as a guide. I used the spline tool to create this spline line and made sure that it attached on the inner circle, and made sure over here that it attached on the inner circle. So when you zoom in, you definitely make sure that it's attached here. And then I used the spline tool to, again, create a spline line that mirrored the other one and made sure that it attached to the inner circle, because I'm going to kind of show you what I'm going to do right now. So you can do this with the rest of the lines, but I'm just going to show you real quick why I did this, is because now I can actually go to see where the connection is here between the line and the outer circle. I'm going to go ahead and delete this small part of the line, so I'm going to go up here to trim, and I'm going to trim this so it all becomes one open area, but it's actually closed, it just happens to be continuous. And then I'm going to come over here and zoom in, and I'm going to delete this one that's right here also. And I went just a little too far, so I'm going to come over here and get out of trim, and I have to zoom in. See how I'm disconnected right here? So I'm going to escape out of trim, and I got to make sure this is connected, so I'm going to pull this up. And now that it's connected, now I can go to trim and trim that off. And so now when I hit finish sketch, and I'm going to do this on an angle so you can see it a little bit better, I can actually, when I go to extrude, I'm going to extrude all of those pieces. See how this one goes inward and this one goes outward? Okay. Or instead of going up, I can actually extrude the other direction. And if I don't do it as much, because right now see how it goes all the way through and I don't want it to, I can actually do it like half as much, so maybe like 0.5. I'm sorry, 0.05, and it doesn't go all the way through, but it definitely looks like it cuts into it. So let me show you what it looks like. So I'm going to click OK, and see how it kind of shows you what the basketball looks like now. So I'm going to go to undo a couple of times. So now I'm back into the sketch that I actually was doing the lines in, and I'm going to finish that with the rest of the lines. So in sketch 2, I'm actually going to create, I'm going to use spline and actually do this piece right here. And I'm going to make sure it's closed and then trim off this edge. I'm going to make sure it's closed and trim off this edge. And then I'm going to go ahead and do this one. And then I'm going to go ahead and do this one. So I'm going to pause this while I play around with the spline tool to actually finish up doing some of these. Okay, so I'll pick it up again. Line. I'm actually going to do an arc. And I have this one little section to do. So I'm going to come over here and finish this. So there's the top arc. And here is approximately the bottom arc. Oops. Have to move this piece all the way in over here. And fix the arc. Whoops. Okay, let's hit back on this a couple times. And how about we finish it with a spline, since we're having a little trouble do it with. Zoom back out. I'm going to grab his hand and move over. And I'm going to finish this up with a spline. And check. Pull it up a little bit. Come over here to trim. And trim that piece. Trim that piece. And I'm going to hit finish sketch. So now I had trayed the entire outside. I made sure everything was closed. I did it all in one sketch. You don't have to do it all in one sketch. I did it all in one sketch. And now I'm actually going to go to extrude, and I'm going to be extruding this all inward. And I'm actually going to do it even smaller amount. I don't want to do 0.05. I'm going to do 0.025 and see what that looks like. And I'm going to click on it. And I don't want to go outwards, I want to go inwards, so I'm going to actually do not outwards, I want to go the opposite direction. I'm going to click OK. And take a look at what that looks like, and it definitely looks like a basketball. So now I'm actually ready to do, I'm going to do a text on top. And some of you guys are totally into the word supreme, so I'm going to mess around with doing start a 2D sketch. I'm actually going to pick a section here, and I kind of like this section right here. I'm going to click on that. And I think I'm going to try to put the word supreme right in here. So now that I did start a 2D sketch, I'm going to go to text. And we're going to try to do a text box right here. So I'm going to pause this and play around with the text. So I tried screwing around with the text part of it, and I found out that doing individual letters kind of worked better for me to get this little curvature thing here. So in my sketch, I'm actually going to do text, and I did the S. And I did a capital, and I'm going to bold it so it's nice and thick. I haven't decided on the letter size yet, so I'm going to leave it at 0.120. So to kind of play around, let's just make it 0.1, just so it's kind of easy. And then the placement of it, I kind of have to zoom in to escape and grab it and put it about there. And when I click on it, this I'm going to actually extrude outwards. So I'm going to go to extrude and click on the S for it to extrude outwards. And I'm actually going to keep the same 0.025 going outwards like I did inwards. So I did the S. Now again, I'm going to go to start a 2D sketch and click on here. And I'm actually going to do a U now. So I'm going to go to text. I'm going to create text. And then the U, and again I'm going to bold it. Click OK. Oops, I have to go back in because I made it too big, so I'm going to double click on it, and it's supposed to be 0.1. Click OK. Kind of like the placement of that one. So I'm going to hit finish sketch, and then I'm going to again extrude the U, and then I'm going to kind of just play with those letters and finish up with supreme right there. And I just did individual sketches for individual letters, and then I can place them how I want to place them versus having to place all one word and turn it around. So I kind of liked it that way. And then, so I'm going to finish up those letters, and then the very last thing I'm going to do is add a hole to this so I can actually make a keychain. So I'm going to have to do start a 2D sketch, and I'm going to have to decide where I want the hole. And I think because I'm going to do supreme over here, I think I want the hole somewhere around up here. So I'm going to click on that area and zoom in. And I'm going to create a circle. I think the hole for this shouldn't be any more than maybe 0.2 of an inch. Hit enter. Escape, hit finish sketch. And last but not least is to take this hole and extrude it inwards. Whoops, I clicked the wrong thing. inwards. And I gotta make sure it goes all the way through, which it has not. So if I remember the thickness, I think I went too far. Oh, the thickness was 0.2. I think that's what it is. So I have to go to extrude and click on that. I want to go the opposite way. And 2 should go all the way through. And there's the hole. So once I finish up the letters, I will actually have a basketball keychain that says Supreme, and I have to make sure I save this as my first name and last name, and then I have to make sure I watch the last slide to figure out how to change it to an STL file and where to save it so I know what color to